Like I said last time, this is going to be a several-part series, so if you didn't see the first episode, definitely check that out, link in the description box below, and also check out all subsequent videos in this series, because it's going to be a long one. Let's get started. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about the social crisis that is happening across the world and across the country as well. And I apologize for the background noise. I'm kind of standing right next to a compressor that literally just turned on. So, all right, so we're going to talk a little bit about the social crisis. The social crisis is kind of what's holding all of the other crises together, and it's kind of what's stopping a lot of people from actually being motivated and actually getting out there and changing the system. A lot of people are being fed a lot of propaganda, the very first problem with our social crisis, and it's making them completely complacent and not want to actually change things. A lot of people are feeling as though everything is going to be handled, the system is going to figure out itself, and the people that are in charge, the elites, are going to save us. And I have to tell you right now, you have to kill your heroes. Nobody is coming to save you. There's a very strong chance that none of them have a plan at all, and they're all just as terrified and self-serving as we all thought that they were in the first place. There are few politicians that are actually out there working for the people. A couple that I can think of off the top of my head are Bernie Sanders and maybe Jagmeet Singh here in Canada. But outside of that, the politicians aren't working on your behalf. They're trying to do whatever they can to save themselves, and a lot of them are working incredibly hard to be able to profit off of this problem, because this is something that they always do. That's what they did during 9/11, that's what they did during the 2008 crash, that's what they did during the 2000 crash. This is part and parcel to the game. Whenever there's a crisis that goes down, the government and the system work incredibly hard to make sure that they benefit the most that they possibly can off of that crisis, because nobody's paying attention to them right now. They are completely running rampant, completely eating up all of the little extra money that they could possibly find, and setting up the rules completely different, so it makes you and I benefit far less and them benefit far more. And that's because they are spreading all of this propaganda. You haven't probably heard, if you watch the mainstream media, even one or two pundits talking about how this is destroying the economy, how paying out the banks and billionaires and all of these different slush funds and giant magnates and all of these people, you're not going to hear a lot of the people in the media talking about how that's actually going to hurt us. You're hearing about how that's going to save everything and how we need to be dumping all of this money into these billionaires' pockets. We don't. And if we do, we're just going to create the same exact problem that we had before. The 2008 crisis happened because of similar reasons to the everything bubble, like I was talking about before, only it happened specifically thanks to the housing bubble, the housing crisis. But after that, nothing actually got fixed, nothing actually changed. A lot of the same policies that were put into place after 2008 are being put into place again, and these same people that destroyed the economy back then are the same ones that destroyed it now, and they're going to do the exact same thing as they did last time, and they're going to make a lot of money off of it. Remember, last time we bailed out GM. 10 years later, they still moved their operations across the sea or across to Mexico and completely screwed over all of the employees. These businesses do not care about you. They do not want to see you survive. They don't care if you survive at all. As far as they're concerned, they only want to make sure that they maintain their ever-increasing quarterly profits. And if they do that, then great. That's why they love the idea of getting a bailout, so long as long as it has absolutely nothing to do with them actually being tied to, I don't know, becoming a nationalized business. A lot of the airplane businesses, like Boeing and that sort of thing, even said that they would turn down a bailout if they had to become nationalized, which shows you exactly where their heads are at. They want to be able to play like the economy is their own personal casino, and like your money is their own personal slush fund, so they can completely destroy everything. And when those chickens come home to roost, when they run out of that money, when they run out of spending other people's money, then they just come crying back to the rest of us and say, you know, you need to bail us out. You need to give us more money. You need to give us more of your hard-earned cash, because we're too big to fail. And if you don't, then we're going to take the entire economy down with us. It seems to me like that's basically a fucking ransom, as far as I'm concerned. And it's not helping anybody other than the rich, the powerful, the billionaires, and the people that are in control of the system. There is, continuing with the social crisis, rank partisanship all across the board. And I'm talking about the Republicans, I'm talking about the Democrats, I'm talking about every politician that's getting themselves in front of a fucking camera right now. They're trying to make this some sort of partisan issue. They're trying to divide people up between party lines. And right now, this isn't the fucking time for your asinine division tactics. Of course, they're going to use them because it's towards their benefit. The more people are fighting amongst each other, the less they're going to be fighting the system and fighting the actual problems. So that's why they're going to continue doing it, but they shouldn't be doing it right now more than ever, because right now is a time that we need to all be coming together as a community, as a society, as a country, as a world, and working towards fixing the problem. Not pointing fingers and trying to place blame, but trying to actually help people out, and making everything so incredibly partisan, making everything divided along party lines is absolute bullshit, and it doesn't help anything. It in fact drags us even further into the fucking abyss that is this hellscape world that we're currently facing. Like I was saying, that partisanship creates a sharp divide. That sharp divide between red hats and blue hats is going to inevitably kill us all if they don't stop immediately and actually work together. Something that I stress all the time on my channel is that we need unity, not just among all leftists, not just among all all people that are slightly left of center or slightly right of center, or all people that happen to make under a certain amount of money. No, we need to have class solidarity. We need to have unity among all working people. We have absolutely very little class solidarity right now. Luckily, we've actually seen an uptick in class solidarity, an uptick in class consciousness since the rise of Bernie Sanders. It's been fantastic to see a lot more people putting their little rose emojis in their names on Twitter, but we need more of that now. And right now, we are seeing very little class solidarity because a lot of people believe that the billionaires and the millionaires and the politicians and the elites and the people in power are here to help us. And a lot of the people that are within our class, a lot of these poor, hardworking people, aren't looking at being billionaires or millionaires as being a bad thing. They look at that as being the only way that a lot of those people can actually feel the freedom of a free society. The millionaires and billionaires are the ones that can go out and they can buy things that they want to buy, and they can take trips that they want to take and that sort of thing. And it doesn't actually hurt their bank account, whereas a lot of the other people like you or I can't just go out and do those sorts of things without putting ourselves in incredible hardship. But a lot of people don't look at millionaires and billionaires and rich people as being bad guys because of that. They look at that as being aspirational. They don't look at the wealth itself as being a bad thing. They look at it as being a means to an end. And that's the way a lot of us should be looking at it too. It's not a matter of all billionaires are horrible, evil assholes. A lot of them are, and a lot of them do terrible things, but a lot of them are working within a system that is created to make those people be able to succeed and get more out of the world than a lot of the other people are able to do. A real Marxist analysis or a real socialist analysis of this system says that we shouldn't be mad at the people that are able to exploit the system the way that it is to get the resources out that they need. I mean, it sucks, they're assholes, but they're going to be replaced by other assholes if we were to just shame them all anyway. So we need to actually focus on the system that allowed them to be in that position in the first place. We can't just attack the rich guy. Yeah, I mean, like, definitely keep doing those guillotine memes, but attacking the rich people specifically isn't an actual systemic critique of why these things are actually happening. We need to focus on the real problems and fixing those, and not just getting mad and angry and yelling at the symptoms. The billionaires and Trump are the symptoms of this major actual problem, and we need to be focusing on fixing the problem and not just curing the disease, to use a very popular analogy right now, instead of just paying attention to the symptoms. Everyone is distracted, and that is obviously a part of the system. They want to make sure that you continue to stay distracted so you don't talk to each other and rise up because you've finally figured out that you're being fucked. And that's been happening for years and years. This has been happening for decades. And it's tied into the entire way that the system was created. I was watching a Mad Blender video earlier today. Check out Mad Blender, absolutely fantastic. Link in the description box below. She was basically talking about how the American system works to propagandize to and to convince people of the same sort of things that Nazi Germany and other authoritarian regimes all across the entire world have been able to do in the past. And it is very simple. You can see it in almost every single thing that you watch. Product placement is a perfect example of this, how they're always putting forward this idea that you need to consume. You need to constantly relate your self-worth to the amount of goods that you have. The guy who wins at the end of life is the one who has the most toys in his garage, as the old adage goes. That's not the way that we should be thinking about things, but it's what we've been conditioned to believe. More people, more often, believe that they have to tie their material possessions to their self-worth, or else they're not worth anything at all, and that's a massive problem, and it's something that is inherently propagandized to all of you every single day. Whenever you see somebody holding a Coca-Cola can inside of a commercial, or every time you see somebody having an incredibly good time, I don't know, eating fucking caviar, it doesn't matter what it is, as long as we continue to tie commodities to our self-worth, then we're inevitably going to continue to propagate this propaganda that is systemically circulating our entire world. Not only is this the manufacturing of consent, it's like the industrial revolution of production of consent. People are constantly being told what to think, what to believe, how to feel, and they're making those decisions based off of what other people are telling them to think, feel, and believe. These billionaires, these millionaires, these people that work within the system that have all of the control are always trying to convince you to do things that are against your best interests. And thanks to that, it creates something known as diseases of despair. What are diseases of despair? Well, it's everything to do with disaffection, exploitation, alienation, depression, and drug abuse. These are all things that happen when you are constantly propagandizing to a population and feeding them nothing but austerity and more division between the people and a starker divide between the rich and the poor. That's what happens when you are literally watching the fall of an entire civilization, when you're watching capitalism, not just in late stage capitalism, but now in end stage capitalism, finally in its death throes, gasping for fucking air. But you better believe that people in the mainstream, the millionaires, the billionaires, and the people in control are going to do whatever they possibly can to wring out the last little bit of money from you and I out of this system before they completely discard it, like so many other single-use items throughout history. Okay, so all that was fun. I certainly love talking about how everything in the fucking world is falling apart. I'm really sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen and non-binary people. It's just that right now we can't be shying away from the things that are actually happening in the world. We have to address these things head on. And even though it's painful, even though it's hard to watch, even though it fills you with anxiety, you have to understand that we do have a solution to all of this. We can make our way out of this, and you have to work together to be able to do that. So let's now talk about the causes of all of these problems. And I'm going to do this standing in front of the peace train. I don't know if you can see right there. Framing, you fuck. So yeah, even though I'm standing in front of the peace train, I am going to talk a little bit about the class war and the causes of all of these problems. Now, I have a long list, but really it boils down to one thing. The problem, the cause of all of this is capitalism. Name it by its name. It is capitalism. It isn't corporatism. It isn't crony capitalism. It isn't anything other than capitalism, exactly the way it was designed to work. This free market system is set up in such a way that it always makes sure that the people at the top continue to gain more and more power and more control, while the people at the bottom continue to gain less. That's how this entire system has always been set up, and it works towards destroying humanity. It is a race to the bottom, and when you tie your self-worth, when you tie the worth of humanity into little tokens of money, then that means that once all of that little money token game is gone, when that whole thing is up, when everything has fallen apart, all of a sudden human lives don't fucking matter anymore. So let's move away from that and let's talk about some of the problems, some of the causes, and we're gonna go through it the same way that we did a moment ago. I got medical, I got economic, and I got social. We're not gonna talk about the global climate catastrophe at the moment because we just don't have enough time in this video, and there's a lot of other videos talking about that, but let's get started with the medical problems. Okay, so why are all of these medical problems happening? Why don't they have the ventilators? Why don't they have the masks? Well, it turns out that it's because it wasn't profitable for capitalism to make the supplies. It wasn't profitable for them to have more beds, more rooms, more staff. It wasn't profitable for them to allow everyone to become doctors and not just the wealthy elites who could afford to take the schooling to become those doctors. That's something that I want to take a bit of a tangent to explain. If you realize that in our system right now, the only people that can actually become doctors or lawyers or elite people are the ones that can actually afford to have the schooling and can afford to get the education necessary to get in those positions. And unless you're a rich person, you can't do it. So we need to stop that entirely. Why would we be basing somebody's ability to heal another individual on their bank account? That's not right. That's inhumane, and we need to stop that immediately. We need more doctors now more than ever. Healthcare professionals, lawyers, doctors, all of these people where it costs so much money to become one of those, there should be absolutely no monetary incentive to have to get into one of those positions. You should be able to get there if you're smart enough or capable enough or able enough to actually do the job. Basing this on somebody's bank account is not just reckless, but it's absolutely foolish. So that was medical. Let's talk about economic. It turns out it was more profitable to use the stock market as a casino. It was more profitable to lobby the government to change laws to make sure that the richest among us got even more than they deserved. It was more profitable to gamble possibly everyone's money away rather than to actually use their own. It was more profitable to have every single person across the entire world to go into massive debt so a certain select tiny few could gain unreasonable amounts of wealth. And it was more profitable to forget every single lesson that they learned from the Great Depression and sink the economy even worse than it ever could have before. Okay, so like I said earlier, we're going to end it there, and then we're going to pick up with part 3 next time, so stay tuned.